Welcome to my video on comparing and ordering. So we're going to look at integers, fractions, decimals, percents, exponents, square roots. We are not going to look at cube roots. And then we're going to look at scientific notation. Oh my. So some helpful hints. Always simplify when possible. That's more important when we're not using a calculator, but in these instances, we are going to be able to use a calculator. Write fractions, percents, and non-perfect squares. And of course, you would do this for cube roots too, except we're not learning it as decimals. And then convert scientific notation to standard form. That's helpful as well. So the first set of directions is order each set of numbers from least to greatest. So the first thing we're going to do is convert all of these to decimals. So if I was using my calculator, I would type in 2 divided by 5, and that would be 0.4 or 4 tenths. Now this is written in scientific notation. So remember, look at the exponent, and the exponent is -2, so that's going to tell me to move the decimal point 2 places to the left, 1, 2, and we're going to drop the decimal right there. And when we move and there's nothing there, we fill in a 0. So this is 0.058 or 58 thousandths. Now, the square root of 3, this is going to be an irrational number, which means it's not going to be able to come out an integer, and the decimal is not going to terminate or stop. So we're just going to write 3, we'll go 3 numbers after the decimal here for our comparing purposes. So we're going to do 1.732 or 1 in 732 thousandths. Now here we have a percent, so to change a percent to a decimal, we can move it 2 to the left or we can divide by 100. So I'm just going to move it 2 to the left here, 1, 2, and we're going to drop in a 0, so this is 0.06. And then 4 ninths, I could do 4 divided by 9, but if you remember the trick of the nines, the top number repeats, so this is 0.4 repeating. And go ahead and cross this out. We did not learn about negative exponents. Okay, so now we're going to take all of those and we're going to line them up. And then we're going to compare them to put them in order from least to greatest. So I'm going to line up 4 tenths. I'm going to line up 58 thousandths. So notice I'm lining up the decimals. Okay, the next one was 1.732 or 1 in 732 thousandths. The next one was 0.06, so I'm going to line it up right here. And then finally, 0.4 repeating. So now what I can do is to get them all to have the same number of places. Here I'm going to write 4s because it's repeating. And here I can drop zeros because dropping zeros at the end does not change its value. So now we're going least to greatest. So all of these numbers here begin with a 0, even though I don't have a 0 here. Remember, it's there. Except for this one. This one has a 1. So now I'm looking at this one. We got 400, 58 thousandths, 60 thousandths, or 444 thousandths. So hopefully you're thinking that this is the smallest, so put a 1 there, and followed by 60 thousandths would go second, and then we're looking at 400 thousandths, and then 444 thousandths, and then finally the one that begins with a 1 is the greatest, so that one's going to go last because we're going greatest to least. Now what I'm going to do is look at these and I'm going to write the original, not what I changed it to. So the 0.058 was this one, but it originally started out as 5 and 8 tenths times 10 to the -2nd. Okay, then the second one was this one, which was originally 6%. And then the next one was the very first one we had here, 2/5. And then came this one, which was originally 4/9. And then finally, this one, 1 and 732 thousandths, which was originally the square root of 3. So this is my final order from least to greatest. So just remember, when you're writing your final answer, you write the original value, not what we converted it to. Okay. So now let's take a look at another example. So number 2 here. And what we're going to do is we're going to cross out this value because we're not dealing with cube roots. So to convert a percent, we can move it 2 to the left, or we can divide by 100. I'm just going to move it 2 to the left here. So this is 1 and 25 hundredths. Okay, if I was doing this in the calculator, 15 divided by 8, it would be 1 and 875 thousandths. This one is in scientific notation, so look at the exponent, and we're going to move it one place. So this would be 13 whole. So we can put the decimal there just so we remember to line it up. The square root of 19, we're going to go 3 numbers after the decimal because remember this is an irrational number, so it's not going to terminate. So 4 and 359 thousandths. And then this one, 1 and 1/9. So I can do 1 divided by 9, which is 0.1 repeating. And then I got to remember to put the 1 in front. So this is 1 and 1/10 repeating. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to line up the decimals. So 1 and 25 hundredths, 1 and 875 thousandths, 13 whole, so we're going to write 13 decimal, 4 and 359 thousandths, and then 1 and 1/10 repeating. And so here I'm going to fill in ones, and then because it's repeating, and then here I'm going to fill in zeros, and then a 0 there. So now I have 3 numbers after the decimal in all my spots. So once again, we're going least to greatest. So I'm going to start with the ones place. So we have 1, 1, 13, 4, and 1. So hopefully you're thinking the ones with a 1. So I'm looking at this one, and this one. So 111, 875 thousandths, or 250 thousandths. Hopefully you're thinking that this is the smallest one. So I'm going to go ahead and make it a little easier. I'm going to put the 1 over here. Okay, and then 250 thousandths was the second one, so we're going to go right here. And then the third one is going to be this one, because that one was the last one that began with a 1. And now we're comparing 13 to 4. Okay, and hopefully you're thinking 4 is smaller, so we're going to put a 4 here. And finally, the fifth one goes here. Okay, so now we're going to write the originals. So we have 1 and 1/9. And then here's the second one, which started out as 125%. And then the third one is here, 15/8. And then the fourth one is square root of 19. And then finally, the scientific notation, 1 and 3/10 times 10 to the first. So it's important to know that when you're ordering least to greatest, you put the smallest one first. And we also might see the words ascending order. Ascending order also means least to greatest. So now let's turn the page and we're going to look at examples 6 and 8. And now the directions change. It says from greatest to least. Okay, so we're going to cross out this one because we're not going to deal with negative exponents. And now we're going to convert these. So 1 divided by 9, we already know that from the previous page, 0.1 repeating. 10%, I can divide by 100 because percent's out of 100, or I can move 2 to the left like this. So this would be 0.1 or 10 hundredths. Okay, the square root of 2 is going to be 1 in 414 thousandths. Okay, I'm just going to go 3 numbers after the decimal. It doesn't terminate. Okay, and then this one is 1%. So we're going to start here and go 2 to the left. Or remember, we could divide the percent by 100, and I get 0.01. And then finally, 3 divided by 25 would be 12 hundredths. Okay, now we're going to line them up. 0.1 repeating, 10 hundredths, 1 in 414 thousandths, 1 hundredth, and finally 12 hundredths. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and drop zeros here. And then here, I'm not going to drop zeros because it's repeating. I'm going to drop ones. Okay, now we're going greatest to least, or another way of looking at this is descending order. So I'm looking for the greatest, so I'm going to look at the ones place here. And I see nothing, so we know that's 0, 0, 1, 0, 0. So we know that this one's going to be the greatest, so we're going to go over here and put a 1. Okay, and we can cross this out so we don't get confused here. So now we're looking at the greatest out of all of these. Okay, so we have 111 thousandths, 100 thousandths, 10 thousandths, or 120 thousandths. So hopefully you were thinking that this is the greatest one left. So we're going to go ahead and put a 2 here. We'll cross it out. Now we're looking for the next greatest, which is right here, 111 thousandths. So we're going to put a 3 right here. Cross it out. And then 100 thousandths or 10 thousandths. Hopefully you're thinking 100 thousandths. So we're going to put a 4 here. And then finally, this one will go last. So now we're going to write the original. So the square root of 2 is going to go first. Then second is 3/25. Okay, third is 1/9. Fourth is 10%. And finally, the fifth and final one is 1%. Okay, so this is greatest to least or descending order. Okay, let's go one more here. And this time we have 3 to the 8th power. So that's going to be 6,561. We have 4 to the 6th power is going to be 4,096. Okay, this one is scientific notation, so we're going to look at the exponent 3 places, 1, 2, 3. And we have 4,100 or 4,100. And then this one, we're going to move it 2 places, 1, 2. So this is 656 and 1/10 because I moved it 2 places. So now it's between the 6 and the 1. And finally, 5 to the 5th power is 3,125. Okay, so we're going to write these out. 6,561, 4,096, 4,100, 656.1. So now none of these have decimals in it, so really the decimal would be right here. So when I line this up, I'm going to write 656.1. And then finally 3,125. Okay, now, because I'm going greatest to least, okay, and none of these have decimals, I can just look at the beginning part here. So we have 6,561. Okay, that is going to be the greatest. So we're going to put a 1 there. Now the next greatest is going to be 4,100. So we're going to put a 2 there. And remember, you can cross these out so we know which ones we've dealt with. And then 4,096 is going to go next. So we're going to put a 3 there. And then 3,125 is the next greatest, so we're going to put a 4 there. And the smallest value, because we're going greatest to least, is 656 and 1/10, so we're going to put a 5 there. Now remember, when I write my final answer, I'm going to list the original, so 3 to the 8th power, followed by 4 and 1/10 times 10 to the 3rd, followed by 4 to the 6th, followed by 5 to the 5th, and then finally 6 and 561 thousandths times 10 to the 2nd. So remember, when you're ordering, make sure you are paying attention to the directions. Greatest to least, or descending order, or you might be asked least to greatest, which is ascending order. That concludes our video on comparing in ordering. I hope you have a great day.